I'm JohnBlom. I came to Korea in 1973, the first time. I was assigned to Busan, and then I moved to Seoul for 3 years in the late 70s, went back to Japan. I started in Japan, came back and was an assistant principal at Seoul Elementary from 83 to 85. Then I was detailed to Osan Elementary and became the principal there for 6 years. And then I came back to Seoul as the principal in 91 to 99. So I've lived a total of 20 years in Korea, 13 just in the Seoul Yongsan area. Seoul was one of the largest schools in the Department of Defense Dependent Schools for 1 year, but it has always been large until the drawdown. Certainly, we would have 1,600 students and 53 buses that came in from Hanam Village and so forth. It was really quite an operation. One of the nice things, my predecessor, there are two principals. By the way, I don't know if you have ever received this. There's a list of all the principals from 1959. No, we got it, okay. One of them, when we got here, they were telling us, you need to go off into the economy and eat the food. It's wonderful. Many of the teachers from overseas or from the States were afraid, thinking that they might get ill from it and so forth. But that was a great way for that principal to say, all right, all of you that are interested, let's go downtown and eat. So when I took over, I did the same thing, but I also took the teachers on field trips to different places around the city. It was a great bonding time with the staff as well. I've always felt that whatever country we're in, we really need to appreciate the host nation culture. And we did that. We started a Korean immersion class while I was there. We started with a first grade teacher. She was ethnically Korean, but of course was bilingual in first grade. We expanded it the next year to second grade, third, and fourth grade. I understand it's no longer there. And we also would have artists in residence. One time we had a famous Korean drummer come in, and the kids were all seated in the gym and so forth. It was really quite loud, but they had a great time in drumming. You see it in all the dances and so forth. It's just it was a great life, great career. Our Korean culture teacher was a Mr. Yoon, and then he went to Seoul Academy School. Actually, two of the principals, Ed Adams, started Seoul Foreign, no, Seoul International, and Tom Connor started Seoul Academy. And they were very instrumental in doing some great things. The school always, as you may have already covered this, because we're in a foreign country, every year at Chuseok we have so many Korean mothers, and it is just a feast. And everybody the boys and girls are all dressed in their hanbok or whatever, and the mothers are too. It's just a delightful cultural experience for the kids that they wouldn't have if they were in some stateside school, for sure. The military, I think, has always been very supportive of our school. Makes me really proud that they support us so well. We had a wonderful music teacher when I was at the school, and the kids were writing their own music. We had computer programs where they could write and design. That was above my head at that time. I didn't realize how far advanced music classes were. The teachers are being transferred to different locations, some to Humphrey, some to Daegu, some to places in Europe and so forth. Somebody told, originally I wanted it, because it was dedicated to me when I was, and there was a dedication plaque. So my wife said, "Oh, you need to get that," and I decided it's too heavy, and what do I need two dolphins for at this point? But I would have liked the dedication plaque, and that's disappeared.
Yeah.
Back in the late 70s, it was interesting when I first came here, is that there were, I don't know if they're Katusa or they were professional military guards, but they roamed all over the school during the day, and some mothers and kids were a little frightened by that. I mean, they were totally harmless, but they had a rifle on their shoulder. So we're thinking, well, this is really interesting, huh? And despite that, theft still occurred back in the 70s. But yeah, people may have different opinions on this, but I think a number of them thought they were living in the United States of America on the post, exactly. Really, because they had basically all the things that they might want there. I think, again, some people were still very afraid and cautious to go off post versus, especially with the subway and you name it. And Although Seoul is a very high-ranking base, when I was in Germany, it was a very low-ranking base, and sometimes mothers were as young as 16, and they really wouldn't go off in Germany, but I did see that more often here. I mean, it's a wonderful city, all these cultural events that are going on. Yeah, I mean, it wasn't America, but it was the best of two worlds. Here you are living in Korea, you can go outside that gate and feel like you're in a different culture and enjoy that. I certainly enjoyed it from that perspective. Well, I'm glad to hear that you're saying they're thinking of keeping building 7097. I do think that it can be redesigned and you know, when it was first built, you've been in the school where the Dolphin Theater is?
Yes.
That was originally a courtyard. Yeah, it was beautiful, but the principal that preceded me decided we needed to close that courtyard and made a theater, which was a good idea, but it certainly destroyed that nice feel in the library. I would open it up, yeah, it'd be pretty. It'd be very nice. I find it interesting that a number of elementary school students that I worked with were Korean American, and they are now either in the military and have assignments here. Some of the girls are working on posts around the country. They want to keep that tie to their motherland, literally motherland. I had taught 2 years in the United States, and I wanted to go to Germany. I thought, there's no place better in the world than Germany. In my mind, our neighbors were Germans, they spoke German, and they had a beautiful yard. I think I want to do this. Foolish, I was young. And I got Japan. And I thought, oh, that's exciting too. I mean, I don't know much about it. So I just went over and I thought I would stay for a year. And then I stayed 3 years. And then I got to move to Busan. And at that point, I knew I didn't want to retire. I didn't want to leave Dodds until I retired. It was just a great assignment to be overseas, meet a lot of interesting people. Military, and I think that was also nice too, is that we teachers did have social gatherings with military. It was not just, you know, the civilian state to themselves. Busan closed. No, no. I was there when we still had military pay currency, though. That was interesting. They were throwing the paper over the wall because it was going to no longer be valuable. They had to use U.S. currency after that. I wanted to say too, you know, I look at the Facebook page of Yongsan Legacy, and I really think it's a wonderful thing. And I don't know if Dr. Ellinger ever contacted you. Dr. Ellinger was the district superintendent of Korea when I was here, and he was just a fabulous man. He was loved by every teacher in Korea. He had a little black book, and he'd go around the school, and he'd say, oh, I'm going to visit Mrs. Todd. And he'd say, oh, she has 2 children, her husband's in the Air Force. And he would make those comments. So the teachers thought, how does he do this? But that was his way of really just feeling good. So you never felt like it was a really administrative, dictatorial type of leader. He was just very personal. And culturally, I think we're different in that we have these different activities that go on the year, like Halloween, although we can't have Halloween anymore because of religious reasons. It's Storybook Character Day, so they still dress up for Halloween. And we downplay religious holidays like Christmas, so it's really, some people get upset about this, but we just call it Happy Holidays because there is Jewish religion, there is anyway, all that. But it is kind of fun, those cultural things. I think the other thing is that Koreans, I think, have a harder time in terms of the Hagwon and studying so much harder than our kids do. I don't think we believe that so much homework is really that necessary. Other countries may think differently, but that's just, I think, the way we do in the military. Well, I think probably Mr. Yoon, our Korean culture teacher, worked out with schools. And they probably knew to contact him, and then they bring in 20 or 30 teachers. We used to do that at Osan too. Again, it was all this part of being a good host, good to our host nation people, that they should share some of this. And we sometimes would go to their schools, or some would, not a lot. Well, I know we had them in the late 70s, and certainly when I was there in the 90s, and some in the 80s too, yeah. It wasn't a regular event, but we did have them every year for sure. I think just about everybody has wonderful experiences in Korea. I don't know of anybody who's had terrible ones. I mean, in any country you may find somebody that's causes an issue, but it's certainly not pervasive in my mind. I'd like to know what your opinions or anybody's. What do the Korean workers and former Korean workers think, especially when the economy was not what it is today? Back in the 70s, Korean men, when they'd see this wealth, and I'm sure by some they were looked down upon. Some of the young GIs I know used to treat the Katusas very unkindly. It's a sense of ignorance, of not appreciating that there is a language here. Just because they don't speak English doesn't mean that they've got everything upstairs. So I do recall that, and I think in my own situation in school, I was a very laid-back person, and then I used to find out that some of the Koreans probably weren't used to such a laid-back person, and I'd find out, where are they? And I'd have to go find them while they were in a lounge smoking. I said, your duty day, you have to be in this office all the time. And then they would kind of really get upset because I told them, well, that's what teachers expect of you, you know, when they need supplies or whatever. So I'm sure there are little issues like that that have occurred from time to time. During the hatchet slayings, the mothers were just beside themselves. They all wanted to leave Korea. They were sure it was inevitable that we'd have a war. And the kids were very tense too. They were worried because their mothers were worried. And then when, was it Chun Do-won who was assassinated too? Park Chung-hee was, yeah, I was there. Yes. I was here when his wife was assassinated. I wasn't here for Park Chung-hee, but the music teacher at the high school was, and he had a group of kids out at another base for a music concert, and they came back to the defense building here, and they were firing shots. And so they turned around, and they had to call all the parents to say that we can't get on post. And so that caused a lot of anxiety for sure. I don't think, well, there were, when I think of the teachers, there were a couple that were worried. They didn't like this unsettling, and they wanted to transfer us out of here. But not many. Most of us just thought, it's not going to affect us a whole lot. We might have gotten tear gas if we were downtown, not knowing there was a demonstration or something like that. That happened to me once. You have to run and go wash your eyes up. But yeah, I think most of us weren't so concerned about it. When President Carter was president, I had an anti-American sentiment downtown in Myeongdong at one time. He was, because wasn't Carter going to take the troops out, and then this guy was very upset, but he probably had a few too many at the time too. Well, personally, it's bittersweet. I loved the school. I loved Yongsan. I loved living in Seoul. Of course, I retired, but now that that's why I came back, I wanted to see it one last time. But times do change, and it makes sense in my mind that this base would move south further just because of land space. I mean, this is prime real estate to be in a city. Tokyo did it in the '64 Olympics too. They got the bases out of downtown, so it didn't surprise me. So yeah, it'll be sad, but the legacy will certainly help.